Welcome back to Cosmic Table Talk, where we evolve the process of disclosure through conversations with the community. Today, we're going to be focusing on a topic that both the mainstream collective and the niche subgroups and communities have an interest in, which is extraterrestrial contact. The good, the bad, and the profound. So before we dive in, let's pause and take a moment for myself and the other hosts to weigh in on today's topic. I really want to start with the focus of why extraterrestrial contact is something that the deep state or the cabal has attempted to suppress. And my understanding is really that Earth is well understood as a realm of consciousness. And it's something that has been curated by groups and people that they've had an understanding of psychology and human nature for thousands of years. And as far as I understand it, the extraterrestrial contact that is constantly seeking points of communication on Earth really threatens those paradigms. My understanding is that all the social engineering that has been poured into the human race is actually quite delicate in comparison to all the variables that could insert themselves into the planetary and individual levels of consciousness here on Earth. So when we look at what the fallout would be if mass contact occurred and what that would do to the control systems on Earth, I think it becomes pretty obvious that any kind of extraterrestrial contact in terms of understanding ET consciousness or understanding the culture of another civilization in the cosmos, it would really make what is occurring on Earth seem kind of absurd and transparent and quite easy to transcend. So I would really like to direct attention to the fact that ET contact has been, ridiculed and made to seem inaccessible or irrelevant because it threatens those systems of power. So I'm going to plant that seed and we'll see if it unfolds later in the episode.
So I think that many of us here know that there can be a variety of contact experiences that we can have, whether it ranges from a benevolent contact or something that is clearly significantly more traumatic. So from these different encounters, I think we have to talk about, it's really important we have a conversation regarding the crossroads and pathways that we have to take in order to assimilate back to what a regular society would be. And from this, I mean, it's just an important conversation, whether you've had contact or not. And it doesn't even just have to be physical. It could be in the astral realm or just ideas coming to your head. All different things, I think, can be considered contact. And in so, we can help others gain more clarity and insight into how to deal with their own experiences and assimilate into society in a more conscious level.
Thanks so much, Tricia. Hey guys, Kalyn McDonald here. So for me, I kind of take like a mental and emotional health approach. So one of the deep state's tactics is to divide and keep all of us in our own darkness. They do it with mental health, they do it with emotional health, and they also do it with experiencers and these experiences. So, I think that there is so much more contact happening than even the disclosure, the ufology community are aware of, because there are even those of us in the awakened community that, for a myriad of reasons, don't discuss their contact experiences. And there's even more, in my opinion, people in the unawakened communities, the rest of humanity, that do the same thing. Because what better way to suppress information about extraterrestrial multidimensional contacts if you have programmed a society to feel like they are crazy, that this didn't happen, that they will be ridiculed, and then they do get ridiculed, and they are shunned from family, friends, coworkers, and so forth. So I think for me, what's really important about this conversation is truly normalizing these experiences, because it is happening on a much grander scale than even our own niche communities, in the grand demographic of humanity. So yeah, I really want to to take these experiences and these experiencers out of the darkness. So it creates a safe space for everybody to share their story.
I'm particularly really excited about this episode because in my study of what factors and things the control system does to maintain control over society, it's basically the creation of a false reality and a false value system with that, which they need to sequester or compartmentalize to keep it the way it is. And I like to use the analogy of an illusionist. You know, the reason that an illusion deceives you is because everything is carefully sculpted. All it takes is one little piece of truth to drop into that illusion. Now the whole illusion disintegrates. And I think one of the reasons that the cabal don't want people to know of extraterrestrial contact is because, one, the very notion of extraterrestrial contact destabilizes that false reality. And two, the subject matter that a lot of these benevolent extraterrestrials are conveying to people, because often it involves philosophy and knowledge of the universe and things like this, is what I would argue the universal laws that allow individuals to gain freedom and prosperity for themselves and the entire planet. And I gave a presentation at Context in the Desert specifically outlaying what some of this philosophy is. And I'm really curious to hear from our guest tonight what some of her understanding is about this, because she comes from a military background, and the undergirding or the glue that holds the society together is, to put it simply, universal law. So the deep staters are keenly interested in preventing people from making contact with this, because if they had the tools to guide their life through law, then they would not only cure all their personal problems, but they'd actually be an agent for good and prosperity and order in our world. And we would have abundance like we've never seen before.
Thanks, Justin. That was really on point. And I'm sure a lot of those themes and concepts will come up tonight. So our guest tonight is Niara Terela Isley. And let me take a moment to introduce her. So in 1994, Niara discovered a disturbing 3-month block of missing time from her career in the United States Air Force in 1980. What she discovered launched her into a 14-year session of research that helped her learn what had really happened during that time. So she's a lifelong learner across a really broad spectrum of disciplines, including the sciences, personal growth, and spiritual practice. And Niara's healing journey has brought her amazing insights about the world we live in and the relationship we have to the universe at large. She is a writer, artist, certified body-centered life coach, a military abductee, and extraterrestrial experiencer. Niara has appeared in such hit documentaries as Above Majestic and the recent #1 documentary, The Cosmic Secret. Today, Niara joins us to share her insights into extraterrestrial contact and how to recover from the trauma of those experiences. So let's welcome Niara to the show.
Welcome to the show, Niara. We are so glad to have you here. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. A little yawny, but I'm here.
Awesome. Well, we're really, really grateful that you are here with us to share your story. So what we like to do is you have about 3 months of missing time that you, through hypnosis, went back and recovered. So could you kind of take us back to that and just give an explanation of what you discovered in that missing time?
Yeah. Just a little background before that was realizing after the hypnosis, I realized that I was having PTSD issues almost from the time I separated from the military in 1983. But I didn't realize I had PTSD. I didn't know what was wrong with me. Nearly drove me to suicide because I just thought I'm making myself miserable and my family miserable. So anyway, I was talking to a friend, and he noticed that I didn't talk about my Air Force time very much. So he sat me down one afternoon and said, tell me about it. And so I did, and I went through it chronologically like he asked me to. And then that's when I discovered 3 months of missing time, 4 months maybe, 3 to 4 months. And then later that year, I ran into Bud Hopkins at the Whole Life Expo in Las Vegas, Nevada. And long story short, he volunteered to do a hypnosis session on me to answer some of my questions about what was going on. because the fact that you can't remember 3 to 4 months of your life is pretty terrifying, especially when you were stationed at the Nevada test site. And so then what I found out was that I had been pulled out of my regular duty to go out to the Nevada test site, test the radar on extraterrestrial craft or back engineered craft in the middle of the night. And then I was taken someplace and injected with experimental drugs to see what they would do to me. And then I was sexually assaulted while I was still suffering from the traumatic effects of the injections. It was pretty horrible. And then because the 3-month time period is involved, a lot of things happened during that 3-month time period, such as being taken on a superluminal craft to the moon, where I was worked very hard during the day and put through more sexual assault at night through the nights. Wasn't allowed to sleep. And sleep deprivation is a big part of mind control programs. So it really compromises you, not having sleep. And I think a lot of my sleep issues I have today are because so much happened to me in the nighttime hours during that time. So that's part of it. What else would you like to know?
Well, I think like for the people watching, I think it's important to get the context of how those things disappeared and like what process occurred for that to become invisible to you for so long.
Well, severe trauma, it has when it's severe enough, and believe me, having a traumatic injection that forced me to go through traumatic effects, for lack of a better word. I mean, basically, the injection had me curled up on the floor screaming for God knows how long, because I felt like my body was coming apart at the molecular level. If any of you saw the movie Lucy, starring Scarlett Johansson, when she was in the airplane bathroom and her molecules just appeared to be flying apart, that's similar to what I went through, except my molecules weren't flying apart in the air. It was more like my body felt like it was turning into beer foam or soda pop fizz, and could run down the drain. I mean, it was an intense feeling of like Novocaine in the whole body. You know how it is with Novocaine in your mouth when it starts to wear off, you get that massive tingle. Imagine that over on your whole body, times 100. It was just really, really horrible. And so I was still shaken from that and still feeling some of the effects of that when I was dragged out of that little room that they were watching me in and sexually assaulted. So when you are subjected to that extreme of a trauma, your mind doesn't want to remember it, because to remember it becomes a threat to your existence. And my mind was right to do that, because when I did get the memories back, I really spent a significant amount of time kind of sitting on the sofa, rocking back and forth, wondering, how the hell am I going to live with this? How am I going to live with the memories of this kind of extreme cruelty that human beings could do to another one of their own kind? So my subconscious was very protective of me in breaking that experience off and hiding it from me for so many years, for 9 years, basically. I'm not the only person that has had this kind of thing happen. I've talked to people who have told me about their own missing time, and they haven't delved into it to try to remember, because they're too afraid to remember. They figure if they are missing the time, whatever happened to them, they're terrified to even remember it. So I'm not the only person that this has happened to. This is a regular thing that extreme trauma does to a person, depending on their level of sensitivity.
It's your understanding that the missing time was not, this was not via a medication or a type of mind wipe technology from the perpetrators. You believe that it was your own mind suppressed the information to protect you.
Yeah, I think my own mind suppressed the information to protect me, but I also think that some kind of drugs were used to also suppress memory, because these people did not want me remembering this. Their whole thing that they were doing with me during those 3 to 4 months really was important to them that I didn't remember.
I've noticed this as like a pattern across a lot of these programs, that at some point they realized that hiding information in people was actually the most effective way to do this. That in terms of hiding documentation and files and all that really wasn't the way. It was like about tucking information into people. And I came across a deeper understanding of this through her book, PTSD, Time to Heal. And I would really encourage others to look into that, because she offers some really practical tools if that's something that people are going through.
Is that a Cathy O'Brien book?
Yeah, it's called PTSD, Time to Heal, and she goes through the steps that her and her partner sort of developed to unlock her memories, and all the different ways that she found supported that process. So it's really small. It's a short book, but it's very practical. And
it's unnerving to know that this stuff happens. And somebody who studies psychology, one of the things that I've learned in analyzing how this stuff works is we have a dual nature. So you have your spirit, you might think of, and that acts as a kind of like governing personality. But then you have your body, and your body is like your animal body. It has its own person, but it's more like a hard drive. And so it accumulates all of these ego personality types, you might say. And when a person goes through trauma, what happens is that higher self, that spiritual governing influence, leaves because the experience is so intense. And now they can literally use the body like a hard drive to create personalities, to store information, to do all sorts of things. And it reveals quite a bit about, what the fundamental nature of consciousness is. But the interesting thing too is that the healing can happen through integration. And I think that's something you're really passionate about. Is that not right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had to do a lot of healing work. Barring a miracle, I'm probably going to be doing healing work around these experiences for the rest of my life, because more memories come up as I'm ready to handle them, even though it's been so many years now. I mean, I started getting memories back in 1994. And all these years since, and I'm now 65 years old, the last 3 years, I've had some very, very, very difficult memories come back that, I'll just put it this way. I don't think that it's going to be possible for me to ever have a relationship again, or to ever be intimate with someone again. It's just not possible. It's very sad, but it's just how it is.
Niara, do you ever feel like you wish you didn't remember what you could recall once you did hypnosis? Or
no, I really am glad that I remember and understand what happened to me, because when I think about going back and like not remembering, it would be like a whole part of my life experience that shaped who I was, and yet not remembering it and having it impact me from the subconscious, that was really crazy making. So when I had the memories come back, all kinds of stuff that I'd been going through in my life up to that point started to make sense and started to fall into place. So I'm really glad that I got the memories back, and it really set me on my life path for what my mission is. Because like we know in shamanic traditions, extreme trauma causes a huge opening of consciousness. And that's what's happened to me. And that's why, I'm so passionate about what humanity could do as a unified, aware consciousness. You know, it's like I said in my notes that I sent you guys. I've come to think of the human collective unconscious or subconscious that Carl Jung talked about. That's the part of our mass of humanity, our collective humanity, that has been programmed and indoctrinated and controlled down through the ages. Almost from the inception of humanity, we've been indoctrinated and controlled on so many different levels, and our collective unconscious has spun out this matrix, this control matrix that we live in. But that's the thing that's really hopeful about this, is if we, as a collective humanity, made the whole world around us that we see from our consciousness indoctrinated and controlled and programmed by archonic overlords or Illuminati or whatever you want to call them, then all we have to do is take that power back and remake the world in what we want it to be. But as I've said before, like in Above Majestic and in other places, we can only use that energy together with love for each other, an agape, divine kind of love. And we can only use it by focusing on the things that bring us together as human beings, and use that energy to remake our world. Because if we have a whole group of people, say we have 1,000 people gathering, we're all going to do a meditation or drumming and dancing or whatever method we're going to use to build positive energy and put it into our vision. If there are 1 or 2 people in there that are troublemakers that don't want to be part of that, it will affect the group, but it's also going to affect them because they are going to find themselves kind of pushed out of the whole thing energetically. So it's very important that we come together in what we really want to create, and we come together loving each other. You know, not in the warm family way, but in just a divine agape sort of way. Like when Jesus said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Love thy neighbor as thyself. You know, he would say those kinds of things, just try to get people an idea of how important it is to be connected rather than to be divided.
Well, it's really interesting you share that, Niara, because in my study of, what is the magic recipe that human beings need to claim in order to remake our worlds in the way that we want, in a truly freeing, transparent, and abundant way, the 2 principles stand out to me. It's love and truth. And one of the things that I think is really inspiring about the information that the extraterrestrials in particular give us is that they encourage us to make contact with the principles of love and how to use wisdom to guide that love properly. And in my understanding, I've come to call that the knowledge of law, or the knowledge of universal law. And when you said, what Jesus said about love thy neighbor as you love thyself, that's a lawful admonition. It's referring to the golden rule. And one of the things that undergirds the true rule of law is that the law applies to all equally, and we do not live in a world where that's the case right now. So yeah, what in your experience would you say in these writings that you have, and maybe some experiences you have, would you say that there's a lot of emphasis on love and also learning universal law and how to live the actual true system, or how to do this?
Part of my generation, I guess. But we read a lot of Richard Bach when I was growing up. He wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. That was one of his first books, and he made a great deal of money with it. And he only found out that he made a great deal of money with it when he called his publisher from a small town where he had been flying his biplane, giving $3 rides. And then he found out he was a millionaire. Jonathan Livingston Seagull. But in Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Jonathan was outcast from the rest of the flock for wanting to learn to fly. He simply wanted to learn to fly the best way that he possibly could, dive and fly it slow, fly at speed and everything. So he spent his whole life learning to fly after he was outcast from the flock. Then as that body transmuted and he flew to another level above where he'd been, he thought he was in heaven. Then he realized, no, this isn't heaven. This is just another plane of existence where I'm learning even more about flight. And he became a student of the Elder Goal, and the Elder Goal taught him about thought speed flight. And then he says, once you've mastered that, he said, then you can learn the most fun and the most difficult of all. You can fly up and begin to learn the meaning of love. And so he learned thought speed flight, and he was working to really understand the meaning of love. But for him, the way it came about was, he said, the more he practiced his kindness lessons and the more he worked to know the nature of love, the more he wanted to go back to Earth and try to teach the other goals that might want to learn to fly like he had. So I think that's the way it is for many masters that come back here. They go out there and they learn all this wonderful stuff. And because they learn so much about love, the only way they can really express that love is to come back here and teach us.
Yes, absolutely. In the Law of One, they speak about this specifically, that the first harvest that occurred within the cycle that we're experiencing, all of the beings that were able to move forward in the harvest into the next density chose to come back. None of them moved forward. The only choice that remained was that group of beings, that small group of humans that ascended, who decided, nope, we're going to go back and we're going to serve the rest of humanity until they ascend. And that directly aligns with, in Buddhism, it's called the Bodhisattva vow, which is, may all beings ascend, may all beings find enlightenment. And, it seems like that is a theme, a spiritual theme on Earth that has resonated for thousands of years.
Yeah. Well, all this time that I've had to take off because of, what's going on in my personal life over the last year or more, that's caused me to kind of be out of sight and out of mind, maybe not out of mind. But I have really, really put my energy into one of the things that I do every single day now for over a year is I'm absolutely doing my spiritual practice every morning, first thing in the morning, because I know that if someday I can become enlightened, just the fact that I become enlightened or any other person comes enlightened, the whole of humanity is uplifted for every single person that becomes enlightened. And so I figure that's a worthwhile goal. If I never get out there and get the rest of my message out and everything else like that, but I become enlightened, I will touch some way, in a positive way, the energy fields of all those I encounter. And so that's just one more way that my love for humanity and for this planet and for all life it supports is expressing itself through me right now, is to keep doing the spiritual practice and hopefully someday reach that goal of God realization. Sounds pretty lofty, but I might as well try while I'm here.
Why not?
Yeah, Niara, I love that, because that really highlights the fractal nature of our holographic universe. So we are the fractal. We are each a fractal in the same, in the hologram. And even if there's nothing else that we can do, or maybe, a lot of us think we're not doing enough, or we should be doing more, or, any of those like fear-based programmings that we tell ourselves all the time, just focusing on our own healing and focusing on our own spiritual practices, even in our small little corners of the world, wherever we are, is just as much of a service to humanity as these shows or these conferences or the articles that people write and so forth. So I think that's a really great point you bring up. And I want to go to your notes that you had sent us. So emotional energy is key, is something. Yeah, it's something that you said. And in our introduction, when we first started, mental and emotional health is kind of my facet of why I think this topic is important. And so this really resonated with me in your notes. And I just wanted to get kind of get you started on talking about this particular subject, because you said we get little to no education about our emotional selves anywhere in our modern cultures,
Right.
and it's hardly even considered. So can you expound on that a little bit from your understanding?
Yeah, well, I think, when we consider all the other ways that we're controlled in our society, programming, all the indoctrination, I think that it's no accident that we get no education about emotions. They're just considered to be this mysterious force in our lives that drags us this way or that way. We feel blissed out about one thing and we feel enraged about another thing. And our emotions end up being out of control and out of balance a lot. And I think that is by design, very, very much so, because if we're expending all that emotional energy, then we're never going to gather it together in a unified way and release it into a vision for a positive world. It's like when I did my talk at Dimensions of Disclosure, I had that picture of a fireman with an out of control fire hose, and it was a funny picture. But if you think about emotion as flowing out of that fire hose, and that fireman is just like trying to keep it under control. I mean, that's the same thing that we're experiencing in a way with road rage when we're driving down the road, or if we get really angry at our favorite person to hate. I used to really hate Hillary Clinton myself. And then finally I realized, Hillary Clinton is probably one of my most important teachers of what I don't be.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, I can't really afford to hate her anymore. I certainly don't want her to have control. I don't want her to be president. I don't want her to be in any position of power or responsibility, but I can't afford to hate her anymore. And I can't afford to hate one anymore. I just can't, because it makes me unclean. And, if more people would really realize that at a real cellular level, that they can't afford to hate because of what it does to their body, what it does to the actual cells of their body, then I think we'd see a whole different perspective on life too. And so the other thing about emotions is if we all came together in those common things that are common to all of us as human beings, and we wanted to set aside all the indoctrination and all the programming, if we could learn to see very clearly that all the things that come out in the media are engineered specifically to keep us divided, to keep us fighting with each other. And on both sides, the archons on their other dimensional level are all gathered up on either side of the issue, sucking the leash off both sides. They don't care if you hate Trump. They don't care if you hate Clinton. They are on both sides sucking up the energy. They're feeding off of it. Okay? And I wish people would understand this, because I think if they would really understand this, they wouldn't want to feed them anymore. I wrote a long time ago. I don't know if I published it or not. I don't think I published it, but I called it "Please Don't Feed the Reptilians."
It's very
because,
true. It's very true. And I feel like being consciously aware of how we expend our emotions is pivotal. Because you're saying that they don't care who we hate, who we love. They care about the energy itself, not really who or what it's directed towards.
And they care about us continuing to fight with each other and generate emotions of hate and grief and depression. All the emotions of human misery is what they feed on. So the more they can push us to crank out those emotions, the better they like it. Our emotions of joy and bliss and happiness, they don't want anything to do with that. They choke on that.
And you look at all the different examples in our just regular society of having sports, everything is about division. Right? Everything you have a side you have to choose, and if you're not in it, you're eventually going to choose one side or the other.
Yeah.
Could you tell us more about agape and how that ties into unity consciousness, and so how we can kind of as a collective rise?
Yeah. Well, I have this little thing I can read here, if that's okay. It's called Love More Than an Emotion, and I kind of condensed it down from something longer. It says, agape is the highest form of love, pure and unconditional, a kind of divine love. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you, and love your neighbor as yourself, pointed people in a direction where they could begin to embody agape. Love is a profound and essential energy that permeates every level of every dimension and density throughout the universe. It's the primal sound or word, vibration, that emanates from the source of all creation. The sound is also the light, one indistinguishable from the other. Quantum physics has broken down our world into its tiniest components and found pure energy and vibrating superstrings. It is found that particles act like waves when not observed by a consciousness contained in a focal point of form. It is found that what is done to one particle apparently alone and separate in one container has an identical effect on another particle in a distant container. Everything is interconnected. Our very existence finds its expression through the dance of consciousness with the sound and the light of this universal source energy. Ultimately creative through the flow of its waves of sound and light, that energy is expressed as love in infinite expressions of life everywhere and in infinite combinations. Love, in its highest expression, seeks to live in harmony with the flow of those waves of light and sound. In contrast, non-love or hate goes against the flow, seeks to block the flow. Flow is the essence of truth. When a person, group, or organization seeks to block truth in any form, it sets up blocks, resistances to beauty, balance, and harmony in the flow of sorts. But this flow will not be forever blocked or diverted. Placed under pressure from blocks and resistances, it will find its way free, at first through tiny spaces, later cascading around or breaking through obstacles. And it's love itself, together with consciousness, that's essential to the exercise of any visionary, intentional action we make, individually or in unity. Because when these actions are taken with love, our efforts are flowing in complete resonance with the divine flow of love that is always moving through all of the multiverse.
Profound.
Wow.
Beautiful.
And did you, is that yours, Niara, or is there?
That's mine. This is from my book.
And what's the name of your book again? What's the name of your book again?
Facing the Shadow, Embracing the Light, A Journey of Spirit Retrieval and Awakening.
And just so everybody knows, we will have links for that in the description as well.
Okay, thanks. And the other thing I'd like to share with you is I've kind of been formulating something that I called, I'm just going to set these down for a little bit, kind of a Kolinar for human beings. You know, Kolinar was like the Vulcan discipline of purging all emotion out so that they could be a completely logical being.
Right.
That's not appropriate for human beings because emotions are really at the essence and the core of who we are. And they're with us for a reason. They're not with us to be spurted all over the place out of control. They're with us to gather that energy and put it with intention together. You know, as Jesus said, whenever two or more are gathered in my name, you know, the power is exponential. So what we do, we come together and we gather up our emotional energy together and we release it into powerful intention. But as long as we're spurting emotions out every which way, according to how the media or, you know, the powers that be want to manipulate us, we will never be able to gather that emotional power to pour into our intention. We will never be able to use it the way it was intended. And so that's why I came up with this thing called Kolinar for human beings, a path of emotional balance. And here are 7 guiding principles. Whomever can manipulate your emotions controls you utterly and completely. And I don't know that you don't want to be controlled. If you don't want to be controlled, then don't allow your emotions to be thrown out of whack. by a tweet or the person you see that you hate or anything else like that. You don't want to allow your emotions to be manipulated. So whoever can manipulate your emotions controls you utterly and completely. It's really important. It's the first step to gaining choice about how you want to use your emotional energy. It's like an essential truth that says to you, now you have this truth. Now you can make a choice. Am I going to spurt emotional energy all over the place and make myself sick and make other people unhappy around me? Or am I going to use it for a new purpose? Okay. Number 2, emotional energy is a valuable and powerful resource. Use it consciously and wisely. 3, do your best to make sure you have your emotions and that your emotions don't have you. 4, take care that you do not leak emotional energy unconsciously, such as the powerful emotion of anger. 5, as in meditation or contemplation practice, learn to observe your emotional triggers. You are the observer. You are not your emotions. The observer is who we really are. That's the essence of who we really are. Like you were talking about, Justin, with that higher consciousness part of ourselves that will just go away when we're being used like hardware, like a hard drive.
Right.
We are that observer. That's our essence. That's the true nature of who we are. And all this other stuff that we're dealing with in 3D is it's part of our life journey with all of its lessons. And we should look at it that way. Number 6, as you gain a deeper awareness of your emotional triggers, consciously practice conservation of emotional energy. 7, emotions are like a team of horses. Manage them with love and work them with compassion and wisdom. Get to know the real you through spiritual practice, your inner observer. And the other one I think here is forgive, 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 and keep on forgiving. Forgiving can be an ongoing process. And I'll just say here, for me personally, it's definitely been an ongoing process. Because just when I think I've forgiven my abuse and I'm complete with it, then stuff comes up like I've had to confront the last 3 years, and I have to begin forgiving all over again at a new level. So it's something that I think forgiving, depending on how badly you've been abused in your life, forgiving is an ongoing process that can go on for your entire life. As soon as you bump into a place where you're hurt, where you're wounded, where there's still anger in there, that's when you have to forgive again and yet again and yet again. And then one of the most powerful ways, and I did this at Dimensions of Disclosure in Loveland, Colorado, was drumming and dance. Drumming and dance is one of the most powerful ways to build positive emotion as a group. You have to come into synchrony with people. When you're dancing and drumming together, you have to be in synchrony, just about, especially with drumming. If you're all drumming together and you don't have to know anything about drumming or rhythms or anything else like that, rhythm is inherent inside of us. Our heart beats, our blood beats through our veins. We're creatures of rhythm. So when we mirror those rhythms inside of ourselves on a drum, and we all come into resonance with each other, and we're all doing our rhythms together, and they're weaving together in this beautiful way, we are coming into, how do I put it, a kind of coherence with each other. We're kind of a unified whole, and we're all participating in a whole rhythm event, and we're all a part of it, and we're all creating it. That is one of the most powerful ways that we can come together and focus that vision and intention into the new earth that we possibly can. So when I did the workshop at Loveland, I passed a talking stick, and I had everybody put in their personal vision of what a new earth meant to them. Okay, and so one person would say this about it. One person would say no chemtrails. One person would say, and I would encourage them, I said, so what's the opposite of chemtrails? Oh, blue skies, nice fluffy real clouds and blue skies. So always put it in the positive. So everybody put their intention into the circle, and then we danced, and then we drummed, and then we released. Then we brought all those intentions back into our mind at the end, and we released them in a powerful wave of energy. And I think that, mass meditations is one wonderful way to do release a positive vision of the earth. But this drumming and dancing is an active and very fun way to do it. So I think that if we have both, that we will find it to be an even more powerful unifying experience, where we can come together and really make that vision start to take a reality, where we can look at those pictures that I've been seeing on Facebook, where we have two timelines in front of us. We have this one here that is destructive and where the earth is basically being consumed in a very wasteful way, or we have this other vision of a beautiful Star Trek-like world and reality, where technology is used for the benefit of human beings. Which timeline are we going to choose? Well, we get together and we drum and dance, or we do the passive meditation, wanting to align ourselves, to bring ourselves into resonance, into synchrony with that positive vision. I think that we would probably go even a little further if we did not only the passive meditations on that, but the drumming and dancing for it as well.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, because just looking at the psychology, you can hold an intention in your mind, but it kind of sits on the surface, just like a belief or a concept that somebody put in your head. In order for it to actually have an effect in reality at a really palpable way, especially at a social way and on the whole earth, have to be lived out. And what happens is that idea goes from just in your head, and it literally starts to flesh itself out into your body. And then your body acts as a kind of like resonator that broadcasts that out. And
entrainment is the word I've been using.
Right.
People become trained in a drumming and dance situation. There is an entrainment that takes place that's very, very powerful. And people, they feel it with each other. They look around and they're smiling at each other because everybody is feeling this energy that they're all entrained to. And it's so powerful and it is so beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things to experience ever. That's why people love to do drumming circles if they're doing them on a regular basis. And the other thing that's important to mention here is the Indians, the Native Americans, came up with, when they were conquered people, they thought, how can we get something back, get back, the lives that we used to have? And so all the tribes put their differences aside. They stopped warring or fighting with each other, and they came together and they started doing the ghost dance, which was come up with by Sitting Bull, I think. And they did the ghost dance together because they wanted to bring back the ancestors and they wanted to bring back the buffalo. And then what did the United States government do? They made practicing the ghost dance against the law.
Wow.
Why would they do that? Now, why would they do that unless they feared the power of the Native American medicine, that they might actually be able to influence something that would overthrow the American government and bring back the way of life that the Native Americans had lived for centuries and centuries and centuries? So I'm not talking about a ghost dance here specifically, but I'm talking about something similar that I would like to see go much more widespread. Very profoundly. It was such a gift to have that experience after all the negative and trauma. It felt like, it helped me to understand that I'm part of a larger society of celestial beings that are really watching over the planet and really love this planet and want to see it do well. And he personally took me on a journey to, he says, I want to show you some things. And so we went kind of flying at light speed, and we went over Mars, and we flew over the Cydonia area of Mars together, just astrally flying. And I could see down there that there were human beings doing like an archaeological dig in the Cydonia area of Mars, which is why we probably don't get pictures from that anymore, because the archaeological dig would be evident. So that was a revelation to me to really understand, yes, very much so, that there are human beings living and working on Mars. Mm-hmm. Then he says, I'm going to take you to the moon of the past. And I remember saying, I don't want to go back there. It was a horrible place. He says, you need to see this. Please come with me. And he says, you'll be safe with me. So I went, and we went back to the moon in the past when I was there going through the horrible abuse. And he showed me an exchange that happened between a very tall, willowy extraterrestrial on the moon and one of the officers in charge of my time being there. And the willowy ET was communicating with the officer, and he says, you have no idea who you have there. Do you realize that everything you're doing to her gets reported back to her people? And I can tell you how it got reported back, too. When I go to sleep at night, and I haven't had a conscious memory of this now for quite some time, but I used to have them. I would go to sleep at night, and my astral body would travel out to the ship, and I would go into this glass tube. And once I was in the glass tube, they would turn on some kind of light and sound waves that would go back and forth inside the tube, and it would pass through my astral body. And when these waves would pass through my astral body, all my experiences would be uploaded into the ship's really ultra-modern holographic computers. And then any one of my people could go to a console and experience what I had been experiencing here. And when they would experience what I was experiencing on Earth, it gave them a better perspective to understand what human beings go through on this planet, and give them food for thought about how they could intervene or how they could help us without violating the sort of prime directive. Mm-hmm. And so it really, to have this experience really helped me to realize that I'm part of something greater, that I came here for a specific purpose, and that that by writing my book and stepping forward the way I have, I am fulfilling that purpose. And I'm very, very happy to do it. And someday I'd like to actually serve on a presidential council as one of the people that helps us interface between Earth humanity and our star brothers and sisters. Someday I would love to do that job.
You have my vote.
Thanks.
Yeah. For sure. Well, Niara, we cannot thank you enough for coming on, and we were so excited to give you a platform to maybe explain the background, but really, really dive into the healing and to, the positive extraterrestrial contacts that you've had, and really get into, we really wanted to make it solution-based and solution-focused. And, we're all traumatized. We're a traumatized planet. We're a traumatized species right now by design. So, we just didn't want to focus on that today. And we're really glad that you didn't either. So I think,
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to know about my trauma, read my book or listen to God knows how many interviews that are out there on the web. I don't have to say it again.
Yeah, no, I love it. I really, really do. And that's actually, I'm about to plug your book right now. So I can't imagine that we don't have audience members that are intrigued on all ends of that spectrum of your story. So to find Niara's book, you can go to the website facingtheshadow.embracingthelight.com. All of the links will be below, and we can put some links to the books that she referred to earlier in the episode. And we'll get those from you, Niara, after the show. So, and also Niara she appeared in Above Majestic as well as the newly released Cosmic Secret. We will have links for both of those. We're currently, we had a little bit of a Facebook censorship issue the other day. So there's a little bit of a sale going on, guys, and I'll have all that information for you as well down in below here. And then also, speaking of mass meditation, so this is kind of our inaugural announcement. Sphere Being Alliance, Stillness in the Storm. Excuse me, sorry, Justin. Stillness in the Storm. Portal to Ascension, and actually Cosmic Table Talk. We will all be teaming up for a rare astrological mass meditation event this January 12th. We will have a sign up page with all of our guest lists and so forth. So look out for more information on that, guys. And again, Niara, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. And I'm gonna pass it over to Justin to say his goodbyes as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Niara. It was a pleasure, as always, to speak with you. You always bring such an enlightened perspective. As far as the meditation is concerned, something really unprecedented is happening. So there's a Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto alignment that happens once every 359 years. Now, the last time this event happened, it was in 1757. And this particular configuration of planets deals with massive societal structures and change. So the things that keep the society together are like these giant rule systems. And although we aren't too aware of it in a public sense, there's a whole occulted or hidden rule system that governs our society at a very high level. The families that govern the various governing structures of our planet. Well, when this happened last time, the entire bureaucratic and royalty family system that was being organized, that had been existing for 2,000 years, was reformed. And that's where we have the common law system coming out. That's where we had the Commonwealth system coming out. The fractional reserve banking system really took off at that time. And this is all came about through the Sabbatean Frankist cult. So the last time we had the American Revolution. This time it's going to be a global revolution, except this time it's within. So I really hope everybody joins us for that event. Check my website, stillnessinthestorm.com. If you look up at the top, there's a tab that says Mass Meditation. It's going to be epic, guys. Can't wait to have you on.
Thank you.
Niara, thank you. As I resonate with everything else that everyone has said here, we really appreciate having you on the show. It's been such an experience to be able to talk to you and to hear your story in a very healthy, solution-focused mindset. So thank you for that.
It's been great fun for me too, and I've loved being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no problem. And along with, I'm also the host of a show called 90 Degree Turns. Our current focus for episodes is about hypnosis. So next week, I'm going to be having 2 episodes come on the 19th and then the 26th about hypnosis and past life regression with Antonio Sanjo. So if anyone is interested in tuning into that, definitely take a look on my page. So.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this meditation, this mass meditation, and the build up towards that. I think it's really, really important to bring our energy and our focus to that shift. And I'm so glad to be a part of helping support that process. Niara, thank you so much for joining us. There's like a kinship here that has really, it's helped all of us. I think like all our past communications and everything that we've experienced together has really led to having such a really beautiful experience tonight. So thank you for sharing all of that. And I really encourage anyone who's listening and watching to really dive into the work that Niara offers, because it's very, very rich in what it offers. I want to plug that I'm working with thegreatawakening.ca. We recently released an article from the former Defense Minister of Canada on the ways in which the banking system in Canada was compromised very early on in Canada's history. So go to thegreatawakening.ca to check that out. It's really important information in terms of tying together how some of these systems have worked in Canada as opposed to the United States. And I really feel like it gives people a bigger picture of the international nature of these control systems. So check that out. And beyond that, that really wraps up episode 3 of Cosmic Table Talk. So Thank you again to Niara, and thank you for everyone who tuned in. And we really look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Right.
Thank you so much. I was honored to be here with all of you.
Thank you, Niara. We'll see everybody in 2020.
See you in 2020.
Okay.
See you next year.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Good night.
Your search for truth and deeper meaning has led you here.
Everyone in the UFO community is faced with how do you navigate a course through material that encompasses ancient civilizations, extraterrestrials, secret societies, and what is the relationship between those and the governance of our modern world?
There is more to this reality than you are being told.
A good starting point is to rethink everything that we thought we knew about history.
We don't even know our own potential as human beings.
I'm a researcher. I was an FBI special agent.
I'm a secret space program whistleblower. Because of my unprecedented access in the programs, I was able to learn about an ancient race that they refer to as the Elder race.
They are the most evolved extraterrestrial group that has ever been involved with humanity.
They take a genetic approach to help them manage this great experiment of humanity. They also bring us various belief systems.
Isn't it interesting? All of the religious traditions that Earth has end with a catastrophic event. We have this evidence hidden out in the open, but we don't ask the deeper questions.
The CIA declassified a document that describes a cataclysmic series of events.
The main message from these ETs are for us to prepare ourselves for this coming event.
This so-called apocalypse is actually not gloom and doom. It's a rebirth. There will be a whole new beginning.
Whoa, look at that, look at that!
Insiders are telling me this will lead to some evolutionary leap in what it means to be human.
Thank you for watching the Sphere Being Alliance channel. Make sure you click on subscribe and smash the bell to make sure you're receiving all the new content from the Sphere Being Alliance YouTube channel.